When I was a little girl, more than anything, I wanted to be like the Americans. I would sit there and watch them when I'd go to the pool in the summer. I went to University Heights Pool in the suburbs of Cleveland. And I would take my little blanket, my little towel, and sit down next to them during the swim breaks. And I would listen to them talk and watch them, even though I didn't understand most of what they're saying. And looking back on it now, I can't tell you exactly what made them so interesting or so different from me. But all I wanted to do was sit on their little white Gap towels with them and eat Cheetos from a concession stand. I'm from what is now the Ukraine. We left to the Soviet Union. And my parents didn't do very well in assimilation. We only spoke Russian at home. There were a lot of Russian grocery stores in Cleveland where I grew up. My parents worked with other Russian speakers. We had Russian language newspapers, and then later when we had a dish, it was a television broadcasted from New York in Russian language. But when we got cable, I understood that you could be one of two things. You could be an immigrant or you could be an American, and I knew which one I wanted to be. I did my research. I read Babysitters Club books, and I made a list of what I needed to be, what I needed to have in my life to be an all-American girl. I need a babysitting job, of course. Number two, a group of very close friends, and we did everything together, even babysitting. Number three, I needed a phone, my own phone line, with a phone in my room. Number four, I needed a boyfriend, or a crush, or better yet, somebody's crush. And number five, a dog, preferably a puppy. If anyone wants to make an all-American Girl doll, like a new American Girl doll, call me. I've done the research on this. I'm ready. I also watched Clarissa Explains It All, a show on Nickelodeon, and this was in the mid-90s, so she had great, like this alternative style. She had like a white t-shirt with a Keith Haring print, and big baggy jeans that had holes in the knees, of course, and you could see these neon pink tights or leggings underneath, and big combat boots that she got to wear in her house. And she looked like this, just hanging out in her room, not seeing friends or anything. I didn't look like that. I wore big, clunky Kmart sneakers and cotton leggings with a big elastic strap that went under the foot. And I think they were meant to be worn with a skirt, but I didn't. And a big, itchy sweater. The month of May, big sweater. Every memory has that big sweater. And this whole ensemble was topped with a big Soviet braid that came down past my ass. In elementary school, if you didn't see me coming, then you definitely smelled my lunch. My grandmother usually made me these open-faced sandwiches on buttered bread with thick sliced kielbasa on it. And American lunch meat is kind of dewy and wet when you touch it, but not ours. It is greasy and fatty and delicious. But it was wrapped in a paper napkin that sat in a paper bag until lunchtime. So by the time I would actually get to the cafeteria, kids would walk by and like pinch their noses. I got some bros. And they got to eat things like Lunchables, or they got to buy lunch, and that was never the case for me. We only ate our food, and it was all made at home from scratch. Especially soups. Soups are a very big deal to my people. There's borscht, which is one of the most famous, with the beets and the cabbage. And we have soup sifrikadekami, which is a meatball soup. And there's vegetable soups and lentil soups. And they're all made painstakingly on a low temperature. And you have to skim the top with a slotted spoon, because if you let the foam and the fat build up, then it changes the color of it. But I got to eat tomato soup and grilled cheese. First time I was 14. And my friend Rachel invited me over after school to have dinner with her family. And I didn't know what her mom was making, but I was so excited when I found out it was going to be tomato soup. And it was a perfect day for it, because it was like rainy and cold, like every commercial. It was wonderful. Now, her family was pretty religious. Her father is a Lutheran minister, pastor. And her mother had these little prayer cards on the center of the table. And at dinner, it was one family member's turn to pick out prayer, and every night there was a different prayer. And that night, my friend Rachel read. And I'm not religious, and I'm Jewish, so I didn't really care about that. But it gave me time to just, breathe in that like vinegar aroma of the canned soup. This wasn't, fancy tomato soup with herbs and croutons. No, this was straight up out of the Campbell's tomato soup can, you know, American Kraft singles, cheese on Wonder Bread. I had seconds that night. A couple days later, my mom was going to the grocery store, and I convinced her to buy me a can of Campbell's tomato soup. And she thought like it was so gross, but you know, if that's really what you want, fine. So when the groceries came home, my grandmother, who she started going through the groceries, started putting them away. And she came across the can, and she looks at it and she says, "What is this?" And I said, "Grandma, this is tomato soup in a can. You just open it, you put it in a saucepan, and in 3 minutes it's ready to eat. Dinner's done." She looks at it and she says, "This, I stand all day on my feet making this soupchiki for you, and this is what you bring home?" She's kind of a tough woman, so when she left the kitchen quickly, holding back tears, I realized I'm not going to have tomato soup for a very long time. I think now I see that more than me just maybe not appreciating her efforts, I think what she saw that I see now is it was just one more rejection in a long line of rejections of everything that they had tried so hard to hold on to. And it took a while for me to maybe feel secure enough in my organization that I made room for those things again and started coming back to them. When I get sick now, the first thing I do is run to Old Lviv in a Ukrainian village and eat their soup that an old Russian grandma is making in their kitchen. But I noticed in the same time that I made room for these things, my parents kind of started going the other way. My family kind of started going the other way. Now New England clam chowder has made its way into the soup rotation, and it comes in a can. Thank you.